Hello.
Feel free to say hello. Let us know where you're from. Hey, Summer Star. Nice to see you. I'm here with our guest teachers, Kevin. Many of you know from Meditation Space Online, and Asa. And we are going to get started by having them introduce themselves, which is always my favorite thing to do. Hey, Tiff. Hi, Dante. And as you know from the topic, tonight we're going to be talking about shining as introverts because you have three teachers here who are introverts. And when I first decided that I was going to be a teacher on Insight Timer, I didn't know how I was going to do that because as a huge introvert, this was very intimidating to me. But something was calling me to be a part of it. And I'm glad that I answered that call and that I pushed myself because it's been a great experience. And, meeting teachers like Asa and Kevin is awesome for me because when you're on the other side of the screen, you think you're the only one. And then you find out that you're not the only one. And there's other introverts like you who are out there doing things that we didn't think we could do. So I love that. And I'm excited to have this conversation. And yes, Michelle, we know you're a massive extrovert. And thank you for being here to listen. Introverts and extroverts are welcome as well. We love them both. So I'm going to let Kevin get started. I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Okay, thank you, Violet. Thank you. And thank you so much for creating this wonderful opportunity for us to be together, all of us here on, on Insight Timer, wherever we are. And yes, thank you so much for all of the wonderful, wonderful work, all the wonderful work that you do, Violet, with Melanie as well, Melanie Underwood. Incredible things that you're doing. And yes, I've been here on Insight Timer for about 4 years now, going on 4 years. And it was a huge step for me to jump into this or come into this. And it actually came about for me through the pandemic that I was finding at a certain point that I really, really wanted to just connect with people, and that somehow when Insight Timer appeared in my life, it seemed like this would be a really, really great opportunity and great channel to do that, and then also to develop something in myself in terms of expression. So very much like you were saying, Violet, and that we've noticed, and perhaps in ourselves, that there is that kind of sense of trepidation, or can I do this? Do I want to do this? Should I be doing this? And yet there's something that is bigger somehow than those feelings. Those feelings are valid and they're there, but that there's something a little bit bigger that kind of, at a certain point, for whatever reason, kind of pulls us in that direction. And so that's what I found has happened for me. I'm so grateful to Insight Timer and to all the wonderful, wonderful people here to have the opportunity to talk about, in my case, meditation, and to practice meditation with people. And for those of you who know me, I'm here on Insight Timer once, twice, three times, sometimes 4 times a week, usually around the weekends, to offer meditation sessions. And that is, and I sing, and sometimes there's lots of discussion, sometimes not so much discussion, but it's always focused around that space of meditation, which for myself has been so very, very important in my life, and has really opened in a beautiful way in my own experience as a place that is, in a space, as a part of myself that is always there, no matter what I'm feeling or no matter what I'm going through. So that whether it's a situation that I feel very comfortable with or maybe not so comfortable with, that again, similar to that feeling that brings us beyond where we're feeling maybe kind of sometimes even a little stuck in a certain way, that there's something there that's beyond just the kind of experience, the regular experience of this that I experience through the senses, something that is really, really grounded and is always there and forever calling to me, I feel, and for many of us who experience meditation, whether we're an extrovert or an introvert. So thank you very much, Violet, once again, and to Asha for being here. It's really, really wonderful to have this opportunity to be with you today.
Thank you for suggesting it because it's something I probably would not have done. Asa and I were talking before we went live about the fact that I always have a little bit of, I don't know if it's anxiety, but a little bit of that energy of like, do I really want to do this? Right before we go live. And I still go through it. It's been almost 2 years and I still have those feelings and I'm still like, "Yeah, it's okay if I don't do this, but after I've done it, I always feel so good. I'm glad I pushed myself. So I'm grateful to you for suggesting it because I would have never, even if I'd thought about it, would not have done it on my own because I'm like, I don't really want to talk about this. But when you suggested, I was like, sure, why not? Let's do it. Let's do
And
it.
it feels
And
so nice to be together to do this. And what was so interesting was that in one of the other recent sessions of AYG, Ask Your Guides, the topic came up, or the sort of awareness came up of the fact that though we're all teachers here in that group, in that panel together, that many of us find that we have these tendencies, or have that a sense that we are somehow having that kind of aspect to our personality, which is towards introversion, or that of an introvert.
and that was great for me to hear because I still think I'm the only one. So when I hear other teachers say that, I'm like, okay, wait, we're all many of us to experience that. I love knowing that. It
Really.
encourages me even more to keep going. And Asa, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself because you were one of the people that mentioned that, and I was like, "What? What? There's so many introverts?"
Yeah, yeah, and I think too, just the act of meditation is a quiet kind of contemplative practice, and so I think that, when you think about, I guess a lot of people that are drawn to it, not everyone, but I think some people that are drawn to it tend to be more introverted. So I guess it maybe isn't such a surprise that people, a lot of people that are teaching meditation that are really into it and all about it can maybe tend a little bit more towards the introverted side. Um, but yeah, I'm Asa, and I have been here on Insight Timer for a couple of years now. And I just got up the courage to start going live a few months ago, but I've been teaching meditation since 2015. And I kind of fell into teaching it. I had been teaching yoga, and that was its whole other thing, gaining the courage to stand in front of a class and teach yoga. But I had been working as an admin assistant and at my Parks and Rec for Parks and Rec. And at my job, we were doing, I was helping organize this festival, or not a festival, but like an event. And it was a wellness event. And my boss said, "Oh, Asa, you do yoga. Why don't you teach a meditation class?" Because, they're related. And I was like, "Oh, well, I'd never taught a meditation. I mean, I practice meditation. I've woven it into a yoga class, but not like its own meditation class." And I was so nervous about it. And but I had that little calling in my heart to do it. And that's why we do our lives, and we teach even though we're introverted and like it makes us nervous. I just followed that call, and I was so nervous that first class, and I still get nervous with each class, but I love it so much, and that's why I've learned how to work with it and kind of push through the fears, and yeah, just follow that lead of my heart. And yeah, it's kind of brought me here. And I got on Insight Timer a couple of years ago because I hadn't been teaching in person. All my classes got canceled, in 2020, and it had been a couple of years, and I had been staying at home, and I was, feeling kind of lonely, and I wanted to get back into teaching. And then I found the Insight Timer app, and yeah, it's just been such a joy to connect with people again out in the world and share meditation. And yeah, and then also grow myself in doing these things that are kind of nerve-wracking and a little scary. And yeah, it's just been such a joy being on here.
I was gonna say I can totally relate to that, the whole nerve-wracking experience. For me, I got on Insight Timer as a user in 2018 because I had been working remotely since 2017. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to work remotely. That had been my goal. I mean, like I went back to school and got my master's degree just so that I could do that. And although I did like being home alone during the day, I kind of craved that, interaction. And I found the Insight Timer app, and then the live started. And I was like, this is great because I can interact with like minded people, but I can also turn them off if I want to, right? You can't do that when you're in an office. You can't just flip a switch and be like, all right, everybody stop talking. So that was one of the things I loved about Insight Timer. And I mean, I was hooked. I was listening to it every day, and I would listen to some of these teachers and I would think, wow, they're like superhuman. You know, they're out there on camera every day and they talk and they're comfortable with what they're doing. And I'm thinking, how do they do that? And I felt like I wanted to be a part of it, but I just wasn't really sure how. And, I love technology. So that was kind of how I got into it. I mean, I love cards and crystals and things like that too. But I think in the beginning, for me, it was more of an experiment. Let me see if I can do this, and I applied and I thought if they don't accept me, it's okay. It's just something I'd like to do. And of course, they accepted me. And then I was like, okay, now what do I do? And I created a couple of tracks and I thought they were awful because I had no idea what I was doing. And even now I'm like, I have to go back and edit those tracks. But the community here was so welcoming that that's what got me. The first time I went live, like I could feel like my whole face was just burning from that you get that fear. And I was doing my best to talk, and I'm usually pretty good, even though I'm an introvert, I'm pretty good at making conversation. I always said that's how I always got any job I applied for, because it's like I become this other person. And, she has no problem talking to people that she doesn't know, and it's almost like you're acting.
Mhm.
So that very first live for me was really a test, was a huge test. Everyone here knows my favorite quote, feel the fear and do it anyway. And so I started doing it. And as nervous as I was, being in this community where everybody is so welcoming and supportive and so, it's almost just calming. And I always say when you're around people that resonate, you it's easier as an introvert. It's easier for me to talk here. If I'm around people who are very like chatty and very extroverted, I tend to be a lot quieter. That's where, like, if I'm out somewhere, I'll let everybody else do the talking and I just kind of sit and watch. So this for me, how I am here is so different from how I am out there. And this for me is so much more comfortable, which is why I love it and why I keep coming back. Because if it wasn't, I'd be just like I was when I wanted to work remotely, be like, okay, I'm here alone and I'm good that way. So this is, it's been amazing for me, confidence wise. It's been such a boost. Hey, Twinnie Violet, I see you putting my quote there. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Absolutely. And that has led me to so many great things, and saying it's relatable. I'm so happy to hear that. I love that. And the one thing I always say to people, because I know what it was like to be on the other side, it's like when you see us up here, if there's something that you want to do, just remember we're just like you. So
Mhm.
don't let it stop you, because I think if I had let it stop me, I would have missed out on so much. 2 years later, I've gotten to know, and that was one of the things I wanted to do, was I wanted to get to know a lot of the teachers that I had been watching, and I've gotten to know them so well, and interacting with them and collaborating with them. It brings me so much joy. I have a full-time job completely separate from what I do on Insight Timer. And although I love what I do work-wise, this is just what kind of gives me that joy that, that work can't give me. So I always encourage people. It's like, just, yeah, Joanne, you're a people watcher. Me too. I'm definitely a people watcher. If you see me out, I'm completely different. I will not be, taking over and speaking and I leave that for the extroverts, and there's always plenty of them. And my husband's really good too. He's great at making conversation, and that it takes kind of the pressure off of me, which is why I like, when I go somewhere, I like bringing somebody like him with me, whether it's him or a friend. So yeah, this has been a great confidence boost and just a great experience for me.
Yeah, boy, everything you said pretty much I resonated with. Just like, yeah, and what Joanne had said about watching people and just being the observer, and yeah.
And I know Kevin has said that too, that he likes to, but Kevin, I think you're good at starting conversations as well. And one thing that I do want to say that I think a lot of introverts have in common is that we're not a lot of small talk. I like the deep conversations.
Yeah.
And
Jumping in at the deep end right away.
yes, yes. And the first time Kevin and I spoke on Zoom, like we had such an amazing conversation. It lasted over 2 hours, and I don't normally talk to anybody that long. So I do. I feel that as an introvert, you kind of have that opportunity for those deep connections too, which is great. I'm just
Mhm.
reading some of the comments. Amy says she loves connecting with people this way. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't activate your insecurities. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a safe space.
Mhm.
Looking at some of the other comments here. But yeah, I see a lot of people in here can relate. And Anne is another teacher. Anne was saying it's so relatable too. Yeah, we may have to do another one of these and invite more teachers because I know there's a lot of us.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
What I guess what I want, what I'm curious to know, like Kevin, like how, what, I know that you said the pandemic was one of the reasons why you were led to start doing this, but like, what were your steps? Like, were you, like I was very hesitant. Did you just say, I'm going to do it and just do it? Or like, how did it work for you?
Well, I'd been feeling for a long time that I wanted to talk about my favorite topic, which is meditation. I have lots of, I would say I have lots of favorite topics, if that makes sense, but that, pardon me, meditation certainly is the topic that I really wanted to talk about, having really devoted so much of my life to this, like over, 40 years, and it, and seeing the benefit of it in my own life, and seeing it as something as of real value that maybe people could also benefit from if they were interested. And that the fact was that I felt there was a lot of people who maybe were interested in meditation, had been thinking about it, but felt that they just didn't have the time for it. That, or one day when I retire, or one day when I have the time, and I've heard people say these words to me, then I'll meditate. And I thought, well, when if not now? And especially when many of us had all this time available to us. So that was sort of one of the things that had been kind of simmering inside me, or bubbling up inside me for a long time, was that I wanted to be in an environment or a situation where I could talk about it. And in fact, one summer I went around to all these different yoga studios in my city where I was living, and I did, I think, 12 or more different um, introductions to meditation in these yoga studios. That after the yoga class, then I would come in and I would do the meditation, offer the meditation. So that was a kind of introduction for me. And then somehow, very gradually, through a friend of a friend, I heard of someone who was doing something in Crete, actually. They had a virtual kind of gathering every week, and I joined that and talked about meditation. And pretty soon I was asked if I would offer a meditation and some song in this gathering once a week. So I said, okay, but it was kind of like, okay. And then one part of me said, okay. And the other part of me went, what? You said what? You agreed to that? But there we were. And because it was a very, very small group, and because again, I had that comfort level, it really did feel very safe, very kind of cozy, if you will, then I felt that it could be something that I could at least try. And if it was, at the very worst, didn't work out, and I'm still here, they're still there, and nothing lost. But like the expression, nothing ventured, nothing gained, there was something in me, something had just kind of unfolded to whatever extent, that then when I actually did that, I thought, yeah, that wasn't so bad after all. And then eventually, the person who was coordinating this kept mentioning Insight Timer, saying, okay, I'm going to upload this to Insight Timer. That Insight what? And then eventually, when I did a little research and found it, I was like, oh, that looks interesting. And again, it just sort of naturally unfolded by itself in a very organic way, which I was really, really grateful for. That it wasn't like I consciously went out and said, I shall and must do this. It was something that really organically not only came to me, but then when I kind of ventured into it, when I started wading into the waters of Insight Timer, I found, wow, this water actually feels pretty good. And, sometimes when you get in a swimming pool, at first the water feels kind of cold, and then within a few seconds you feel, wow, this is really not cold at all. This feels really great. And you start swimming and everything just kind of unfolds from there. But I can say that when I was starting out with Insight Timer, there were definitely moments when I felt, oh, that's enough. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to just, I'm
Right.
not going to do this. I'm going to pull the plug. I'm going to shut this down. We're not going to, not going to continue further. And that was really strong. And it kind of came up to that point several times. And it was like, okay, this is where we are. Do you really want to do this? You've come this far. You've invested this much time in this, and you've come to this point. Do you really want to do that? It's like, okay, one more chance, one more time. Let's see how it goes. And somehow at a certain point, it's over the hump or whatever, but away we went. And there's been no turning back ever since. And I think one thing that was very important for me in terms of Insight Timer was I really had to kind of sit myself down, have a talk with myself before, as I was starting out, to really have a sense, what is it that you want from this? Or what do you feel prepared to do? What do you not want to do? What are you hoping for? What do you just get a sense of what it was all about for me. And one thing that was very clear to me and has been, and remains very clear to me, is that I'm doing this for myself, but certainly for other people as well. But I'm really doing this for myself, that I come here as a complete person. I'm coming here with that sense of completeness. And if something happens that works and unfolds from here beautifully for someone, wonderful. But if it doesn't happen, to not have the expectation is what I found is so important, that anything should be a certain way or should unfold according to some idea that I have. So in that sense, coming here with a sense of completeness, that everything's already done, everything is already complete, everything is just fine as it is, and we can do something further from there that maybe can be offered to someone and can assist someone and can help someone. But I really have that sense that I'm to whatever extent free of expectations, that it's an offering and that's it. And then how it will unfold is how it will unfold. So in the same way, offering the time on Insight Timer as it is. Some days, some sessions and some live events, they just sort of, they really fly, they take off, they go for the longest time. Sometimes I come on here and I'm really inspired to speak and I'm speaking and speaking. And some days there's not so much to say, but regardless, in my case with offering the meditations, there's always that focus, that focal point, which I come back to again and again. And in this way, when we really look after ourselves, take care of ourselves, and know that I am doing this for myself and others as well, not in a selfish way. This is not a selfish doing for myself. It's a really a self-nurturing, self-supporting way of really encouraging, identifying one's strengths and supporting them, and then certainly offering and sharing in whatever way one can with others as well. So it's not exclusively about oneself, but it certainly is important to know that I'm doing this really for myself and for others, and that we're all so connected that it's not like it's me and others. It's really us all together, lifting and supporting, helping, and perhaps guiding at some point or another each other in whatever way we can.
Yeah, I love that because I always say I did this to get outside of my comfort zone. And, I think the fact that there was nothing attached to it made it easier. It's not like I have to do this. It's like I want to do this. And what you were saying about there have been highs and lows there. I want to say every other month where I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. you know, and then I'm like, yes, I am. Yes, I love this, because you just go through so many different phases where it's like sometimes it really charges you up, and then other times I'm like, I'm really tired, I don't want to do it. But afterwards, I'm always happy that I. And I'm gonna move over to you, Asa. I want you to tell us, like, how did this evolve for you?
Yeah, well, um, let's see, where should I begin? I back when I taught meditation, I started in 2015, and it was so I taught it at that event, and then afterward during the event, it was like these just mini 15-minute meditation little like sessions. Just it was a like spa event, relaxation. And everyone kept saying afterwards, so where's the meditation class? And I was like, oh, well, we don't have a class, but let me take down your info. And then we had all these people interested. And then I was like, well, someone needs to teach a class because we've got all these people that want to take meditation. And so I started the class, and I thought this was a meditation meetup. Everyone would show up and they would have some experience, and we would sit in quiet, maybe some relaxing music. And the room was full on the first day. And I asked how if anyone has any experience. They're all beginners. They'd never meditated before. And I was like, okay, we're going to pivot here. I was just going to sit here and quiet and give a little bit of instruction. And so, but it turned out being such a beautiful group. We met every week. I got to know these people over 5 years. And during that time, I would recommend the Insight Timer app. And, there's another meditation app I would say too. I'd be like, so, we come here each week and then, keep up with your practice. You can go to the Insight Timer app. And the times that I'd used it, I'd really only known about the timer aspect of it. And so it wasn't until 2022 when I was had been at home and had moved across the country. There was all this change in my life, and then I kind of rediscovered it again. And that's how I was like, I'll try to upload some meditations. And at the time, I was trying to run this business where I was really into. I love like herbs and lavender and chamomile and like making stuff with it. So I had trying to do this, shop with that, and then I was like, I'd love to get back into teaching meditation, and it had been a little while. Yeah, I had a baby and took some time off. And so then I don't even remember exactly. Again, it's just like a little bit of a mystery about when that seed was planted to like go to the Insight Timer website. And because I hadn't really been using the app, but somehow I had that idea to go to the app or the website and apply to be a teacher. And I uploaded 4 meditations, and then I ended up taking a long time off from it, being a new mom. And then I slowly found myself again and kind of made my way back to it. And I have since set aside my little herbal business, and I'm just focusing on the meditation now. And it's just been such a joy to yeah, be back here and connecting to people, because I stay at home mom, and so I don't get a lot of interaction with other adults. And so it's nice to do that and to share. My main intention is meditation has been so healing in my own life for myself and my anxieties. And so and that's why I love sharing yoga so much. And I'm going to bring back the yoga here on Insight Timer in the spring. But that's my intention is I share it because it's been so beneficial in my life and so helpful. And I want to help introduce that to others. And so that's why I kind of am geared a little bit more towards like introducing people to meditation. Teach different styles. So I have sleep meditation and visualization, and I do pet meditation and mindfulness and pranayama or breath work. And yeah, I'm just really loving like kind of focusing on that now. And then we're going to bring back the yoga. And those are just my favorite things in life. And I'm so happy to see how it's evolved, because yeah, in the beginning, before I started going live, it was kind of lonely. I didn't know any other teachers on the app, and I wasn't even really using the app to its fullest extent, like attending lives. And then yeah, I just started, I think it was over the summer, I started attending them, and I was like, man, these are so much fun. And I was like, one day I'd like to lead my own live, and I was so nervous about it. And so I just put it off for like 6 months. And then finally I was like, awesome, it's Insight Timer. Like if it doesn't go well, I can just not do it again. And just, we just tried it and it didn't work out, and that be done with it. And so, I come up with all these ideas or reasons in my head why it won't work. And then I just had to remind myself, like that initial spark that came up that like wanted to say like, yes, I want to do that. And I had to like feed that, I guess, and focus on that and be like, okay, yeah, all of these things, the internet could be messed up. I could say the wrong thing. It could go horribly wrong, but I'm going to try it and we'll see how it goes. And yeah, it's just been such a joy to be connected to people again, to connect with other teachers. And I also joined like a teacher group outside. And yeah, it's just been just this beautiful experience and just aspect of my life that I had no idea I would be here, even 6 months ago, going live a few times a week and getting to know people from all around the world. And yeah, and then it's just been a beautiful growth opportunity for me, my own life.
Yeah, for me, it's like it's something I didn't even know I needed. So it's
Mhm.
kind of just the way you said, the way it all just kind of happens. Like I didn't even know I needed it. It just happened. And I'm glad that
And
it's
and And one of the things, like in terms of the community, I just want to say is that it is such a beautiful community in Insight Timer that my kind of sense of trepidation starting into this was that at like during the time of the pandemic and all that, there was just so much stuff going on in so many from all different directions, and I really felt intimidated by just so much negativity and all that I was observing, and I was thinking, well, Insight Timer, it's public, it's a kind of there's a big random aspect to this. There's this anonymous aspect to all of it, and so that was a big concern, a fear, you could say. But again, just facing it and going through it very gently, and then discovering what an incredible community is here on Insight Timer. And of course, the very fact that it is an app that is designed or is focused towards meditation and things of this that are related like this, right away puts it in sort of in a place that probably if someone comes here, they are interested in something like this, hopefully, and certainly that is the experience that I've seen again and again, is that it attracts, like you were saying, like-minded people who are really interested in finding that something that they maybe are not seeing in other areas of life.
Exactly. It's a place where I felt safe enough to try to venture out and do more. So, yes. Britt had an awesome question that I copied because I wanted us to address it. Britt writes, as an introvert, how do you handle an extrovert who takes over so much that it's hard for you to get in a word when you're wanting to come out of your comfort zone? That is something that I still struggle with. So while I'm thinking about a good answer for that, because I know I've had to deal with a lot of extroverts who do like to take over, I am going to either Asa or Kevin, if you have an answer, feel free to share.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just thinking about when I did work in admin, I did that for 10 years, and there were a lot of big personalities. And I don't know. I mean, I think I just let people let them speak as much as they need to, and just if I do have to, I really have to step up and say something, then there's probably some deep breaths happening right beforehand, and just like trying to speak with confidence and not so quiet, because there's a tendency to speak really like quiet,
Mhm.
kind of curl in. And so just like changing your body language, taking some deep breaths to kind of relax yourself internally, and yeah, just speaking up and just pushing yourself. But it's real hard, and it's something
Very
I
hard.
continue to work on too.
Yeah, it's very hard. Like it's really hard for me. I tend to avoid people when they get like that, and I call it ghosting. I'm trying not to do that anymore. I'm trying to kind of face that discomfort and deal with it in a better way. But it is hard. It takes a lot for me to say to somebody like, how do you say to somebody nicely like back off? Kevin, do you have any suggestions?
Well, I think a big part of it really lies in acceptance, like accepting the situation as it is, first of all, and also to not put undue pressure on oneself in terms of, say, reacting or interacting in a particular situation, and maybe just even enjoying it. Just, okay, over to you, take it away. And but of course, if something needs to be said, that's a different situation. Like, is it that I want to say something just because I'm going to feel good in myself, that I'm going to prove to myself or prove to somebody else that I can do this, that I can face this? Well, there's a time and a place for everything, a place for everything, and everything, a time for everything in a way. But maybe it really comes down to what's the value added going to be in this for me? Do I really need to do this? Do I really want to like assert myself or appear or show up in this situation in a way that's really going to be that different than how I'm feeling inside? Maybe not. So many situations, it really depends on, I feel, in myself, in situations, where am I at in this in myself? Because I've noticed also that there have been times when I maybe have kind of come up to the plate in a situation with someone, and it hasn't gone very well. And in the end, I think, well, why did I really need to do that? Like, why did I do that? Did I really need to? So, in a case like in terms of Britt's question, which by the way which is a great question, and I really appreciate Britt, you asking this question, that what is the driving force? Like where am I centered in myself? Am I centered in myself? And do I really need to? Is there a need for me to participate in this situation at this time? Or can I just let it go on and know that I'm fine either way, whether I say something or I don't? And then insofar, let's say there is something that needs to be said by me or contributed to the situation, and there's an introvert, an extrovert, or several extroverts in the room or participating, there maybe are different ways to address, like rather than maybe not necessarily standing up and speaking in the same way, maybe texting, sending an email, or sending some kind of message or communication that feels more comfortable, or even talking to someone else, not and just sort of mm, deferring to someone else, maybe asking somebody else to make the point if you're really not feeling comfortable, to not feel that I have to do it necessarily, asking somebody else to contribute, or perhaps consulting with somebody and seeing, do you think it's a really good time to stand up and to say something here? Do you think it's maybe, would you do this? Or do you think that I should be maybe making more of an effort here to use the resource of other people, to connect with other people and see how that feels and see what they say? So different ways that it doesn't have to be necessarily sort of addressing a situation exactly as we see it coming toward us. Sometimes yes, but otherwise maybe looking at other options, other alternative ways of coming back to that situation and presenting whatever it is that needs to be presented.
And I don't know how you feel about it, but I am not a confrontational person. And my fear is always it's going to become something confrontational. And I don't want to engage in that. So that's where I struggle. It's like, how do I tell this person, that something that they're doing is really bothering me without it becoming confrontational? Because in my mind, I'm already having that argument. They're going to say this and they're going to do this and they're going to be angry. And then, it's like, what do I do? How do I handle this? It's really hard. I've put myself in situations where I've had to be like, all right, I'm just going to take a deep breath and I'm going to do it. And I've done it. And like you said, sometimes it didn't turn out well. So it's like I hesitate to do that next time, but sometimes you have to. So it's definitely a challenge.
And there's two things I would add to that as well, Violet, that you were saying in terms of those interactions. One is that if we feel really separate from another person, like sometimes in situations like, let's say there's somebody who's very, very extroverted, and we're feeling maybe a little bit of intimidation from that, their presence, whatever. There's kind of like two things going on in a way, that as I'm observed, when I observe these situations, I feel I can start feeling really, really separate from that person. And the other thing is I can start feeling maybe even like I don't like that person, or I don't like
Mm-hmm.
energy. And one thing that I've found has been very helpful for me is to somehow remember, well, I'm actually not, even though I don't maybe like this behavior, I'm not that separate from that person. Like we are still nonetheless connected somewhere, somehow, somewhere. And also, so that's number one, is to somehow have a sense that I'm actually, rather than when their energy is coming toward me, allowing it to push me further and further away, to just recognize it for what it is, but also just keep that very gently, very subtly. And this is where if you sort of think in a way that is towards things that are more subtle or more kind of unseen, but yet there, if however you might want to describe it, if you can somehow, or I feel, have that connection on a more subtle level with that person, that helps, number one. And the second thing is to somehow appreciate, to find something about that person, even though that person may be really putting you off, to just find something about them, something they're wearing, or the way they write their name, or something that is there. There'll always be, chances are there'll always be at least one thing that we can, or that one can find about someone else in those situations that can be appreciated, and and genuinely appreciated, not in any kind of like a made up way, but a genuine something that is there. And if that appreciation can be offered to that person about that thing that could be completely unrelated, and also to not lose a complete sense of connection with them, then somehow, if in a situation that one finds oneself, one has to say something, one has to offer something, then somehow these two little things of just remaining somehow connected, even way out there, we're connected way over there somewhere, and that there's something, even just this little thing over here that I can appreciate, bringing those two things to the table, in my own experience, I found can really, really do wonders. And very often I found, in terms of certain people I've observed, and this kind of segues a little bit, or could segue a little bit in some situations towards narcissism and all that, that actually there's a real longing in everyone to be appreciated and to be loved and to feel love. So if somehow that can be in a very sort of genuine way, there's always something to love in a way about everyone in some way. And to find that and to honor that and bring that can be very helpful, I found.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. And I also think sometimes that the people I'm in the situation with, if it's a friend, I try to think about because I'll get that way too. If they're becoming too overbearing, I almost start to get to that place where I'm like, I don't really like this person. But then I think to myself, there was a reason why we became friends. So I do like this person. And I try to focus on that when I'm getting angry. And I also remind myself that a lot of times extroverts, to me, I'm like, oh, they're so confident, but maybe they suffer from the same insecurities that I do. And this behavior is a symptom of that. So I try to cut them slack for that reason, because I'm like, hey, they're just like me. We're just trying to get through this. So yeah, but yeah,
Yeah.
there are some extroverts that I do avoid.
I think it can also help to have like practices in your back pocket to do like after you have that event or that situation or that conversation. Like what are the things that ground you and kind of bring your heart rate back down? For me, it's always some sort of breathing practice. So yeah, maybe it's taking a walk, or I don't know what, there's all kinds of different things you can do, but I think it helps to like know ahead of time what are maybe like 3 things that kind of help bring you back down and ground you and calm you down quickly, after, just have them ready to go if things get heated, when you have to have that conversation.
Yeah. I want to scroll back up here. I saw a couple of really good comments and the chat went by so fast. Britt said, thank you for responding to my question. I'm married to the extrovert in question. I assert when I have to, but I feel like I'm mostly in the shadow when he's around. Britt, my first husband was such an extrovert that I literally felt invisible around him. And that was really hard for me. So I can absolutely relate to what you're saying. And yes, you say it draws on your energy. That draws on my energy a lot too. And someone else made a comment here about it was another good comment about being an introvert. I can't find it because the chat is scrolling by so fast. Oh, Stephanie, assessing the energy of the introvert can be helpful. Of the introvert can be helpful. There are some that won't hear you. Maybe you meant the extrovert. If there's some that won't hear you, because I felt like with my first husband, he was very much an extrovert, and I felt like he never heard me. Like I would try to calmly say things to him, and he just had a temper and was always kind of talking and yelling, and I felt invisible and I felt unheard. So I guess it depends on the person. It's nice if you're with someone, and I have a fantastic therapist, and she has said to me, in healthy adult relationships, people will listen to you. And if they don't listen to you, then it's not a healthy relationship. And I was like, you know what? That's a good point. So that's how I differentiate now. It's like, if you're not listening to me, this is not a healthy relationship and I will not engage. That's the best advice I can offer. There was another great question here, Marjorie's. I copied it so we wouldn't lose it. Marjorie says there's probably a lot of overlap between introverts and HSPs, or at least they share key characteristics, behaviors, reactions, instincts. Any thoughts on that? That's a great question as well. Either one of you want to tackle that one? I agree.
Yeah, well, I definitely align with being a HSP, and I think that makes sense because when you're highly sensitive, you need quiet, you need solitude to recharge. And that's a big part of being an introvert. And yeah, so I think there's a big overlap.
And I didn't really know a lot about HSPs. Watching Rebecca's lives, she talks a lot about HSPs, and I, started looking into that, and I was like, oh, they really are. I mean, a lot of introverts probably are HSPs, and maybe we don't know that because we didn't know that term. I didn't know that term until I got on Insight Timer. So I definitely agree with that one as well. Yeah, highly sensitive person. Thank you for, yeah, it's funny too. I am big on explaining acronyms because every job I've ever had, they've thrown so many acronyms at me that I'm like, why don't people explain what they mean? And now I'm doing it and I forget. Dante writes, introvert, HSP, and empathetic seem to be related. Yeah, absolutely. I say that all the time. I'm a very empathetic person to the point where I do absorb a lot of energy. And again, that's probably why I like working remotely, because when I was in an office, it was really hard for me. Like I didn't know anything about protecting my energy, and it was draining. It was very draining to me. Even sometimes now I feel that way, with people. It's like they can really drain me, and I need my alone time. I need to like shut down and, not look at my phone or anything, and just kind of retreat into my space, which is what I love about where I am.
Go play with Onyx.
Exactly. And that's what I do. I will like go sit on my Chase lounge with him. He'll sit on my lap, and I mean, Asa knows she does meditations with pets that I love. I mean, they are so grounding,
Oh.
and I don't know what I would do without him. Like he's definitely my support dog.
Yeah, I definitely feel like my cat's the same way. He helps bring me down and calm me down. And yeah, I was thinking about that too, what you had said, that being around people in an office is can definitely be draining. But even like doing lives, even though I'm not like physically in the same room with another person, it's still that communication. And when I released my pet meditation course in December, I got this idea that I would do like a live tour because when you release a book, people go on a book tour and they, are on all the podcasts and TV shows and everything. And I was like, well, I'll go live like twice a day for 3 days. It was like just the weekend. And for most people, that'd be just fine because I know there are people that go live, teachers that go live a couple times a day. But as someone that's highly sensitive and also an introvert, it was, I wanted to do it and I was excited to do that and go live at times I never had before and meet new people and, share about this pet meditation. And then I remember like the morning of the third day, I was so just energetically exhausted. And I still like completed my final live, but then I had to take like a whole week off of lives because I was like laying on the ground doing legs up the wall pose because I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to like get as close to the ground as I can because even though there weren't people in the room with me, it's still doing this and like talking to other people live was still, I don't, it just still takes a lot of energy out of you.
Yes, yes. Oh gosh, it's so funny that you say that because for the longest time I was like, I'm just gonna do one a month. I can't do more than that. It's too much. And topics come up and I love them. And I'm like, all right, I'll do it. I'll do it. Somehow this week I ended up doing 5, and that was a lot for me.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing another one, I think, until the 18th, because I'm like, well, tomorrow I have one, but until the 18th after that, because I'm like, I need a little decompressing time now.
Yeah, but the lives are so fun too. I'm sure you both agree. There's
Yeah.
there's this it is so fun when you're in it. But yeah, then there's this other element of like, well, my body can only handle so much, of this energetic connection with other people and then I need to take a little.
Yes, yes, exactly. Like I've even said to people, if you want me to do something, I'll do it and I'll be off camera. I'll run it because I know how to run the tech, but I'll be off camera, and that for me is like, I guess that's my compromise. It's like I don't mind doing them, but sometimes I don't want to be on camera. It took me this long just to get comfortable being on camera.
Mhm.
And if I'm doing it, like I said, like this week was a lot, and I love them. I've loved every one of them, and I'm excited about tomorrow's. But then I was like, all right, I don't have another one until the 18th. I'm not scheduling anything in between. If something comes up, I will do it. But I was like kind of giving myself that space. I'm like, I need a little time now.
I think that's a really wonderful thing to be able to just be aware of that and to honor that that's so important, and to hopefully have the ability to be able to honor it. Like if you had some commitments that you had no choice, that's one thing. But when you have the opportunity to make those choices, to honor yourself, to honor what's really, really that you know is important for you, or that is, and that is something maybe you don't want to do at a certain time, to really see the value of that and to go with that. It's so important. So
Yeah, and
like
I think that's
when,
something that's I'm glad you said that because I think that's something that introverts need to know. So I'm glad you said that.
yeah, and that very often the kind of the validation or whatever doesn't come from the environment, perhaps, or there can be times when that sense of validation for being the way one is just not there. And to somehow really nurture and develop a sense of self-validation. Like I know what I know in the core of my heart, the core of my being. I really know this to be true for me. And that's enough. It doesn't need any validation. It doesn't need to be built up by anyone else, and it can't be detracted by anyone else. That there's just something that is so clear and so solid, so grounded, so firm, so whatever word you want to use, that it's there regardless under all circumstances. It's so important. One
And,
thing
and
I
and you know, I was gonna say it took me a long time to realize that I have a right to say no to people. And even after I started doing this, because of, this gift of being good with the technology, I had people throwing so many ideas at me and I was trying to appease everybody. And then I was like, wait, I can't keep saying yes to everybody. And just the experience of finally being able to say no to people in a nice way. It's not like, no, I'm not doing it. It's like, no, I can't. I have
sure,
other
it can always
commitments.
be done nicely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's been a gift to me to be able to learn to say no because I was not doing that for a long time.
That's a really, really good point, Violet. And isn't it interesting how the word no in a way should be easier to say because it has one less letter in it than the word yes.
Right?
You know, I know one thing when I came on Insight Timer, one of the things that I came to learn very, very quickly was that, and in life in general, but certainly on Insight Timer, was just because I'm asked a question doesn't mean that either I can or that I need to maybe answer that question. It doesn't say that you shut it down, but just acknowledge, well, this question maybe isn't for me. This question isn't really my area of expertise. It's not something I really feel I have anything to offer, or that simply to say that it's not really something that I will be able to answer for you today. I know very much the situations when they come up where someone maybe asks something that sort of moves towards, say, a medical area or something like that. I'm very clear to say, I'm not a medical professional. I don't give medical advice. I'm not a psychologist. I don't do therapy. However, I'm here talking about, in my case, meditation and anything related to that. And if this helps you in your life, that's great. But to have those really boundaries, and that's this sort of is that's a very, very important topic in terms of all of, well, life in general, but I think also in terms of introversion and really so many areas of life, to be aware of boundaries, to know that you certainly have the right to have your boundaries and to honor your boundaries and to be clear as to what they are. So if somebody asks a question of you, there's a kind of a subtle thing, I think, in our culture and society or whatever, where just because somebody's asking a question, there's a kind of feeling of that there's the onus on me is to answer that question and to answer it perfectly or to answer it to that person's satisfaction. Like that's an awful lot of pressure that kind of subtly is there just in the asking of a question. Whereas if one can just say, recognize, wow, this isn't for me, and then very nicely, like you were saying, to say no, but do it nicely. Say, well, I wish I could answer, but I can't. Or just maybe we can ask this other person, for example, and see if they can help us with this, or you can go to this other place, this other resource, and get an answer there. And in terms of just going back for a second to the situation, say, with somebody, Britt's question who's taking over, say, in a situation, um, maybe going to a different place temporarily can help. This came to me when you were answering that maybe if there's, say, an issue and there's a person, say an introvert, just making it very simple here, an introvert, an extrovert, and a situation. If that introvert needs to respond, just take it to somewhere else, like outside of the box of that particular issue for some time, and find a meeting place somewhere else. Create a sense of unity or connection with that person somewhere else, and then come back to the situation, so that that kind of energy or feeling of connection has been established by maybe going outside the box of what is directly in front of you. So likewise with a question, if a question is there, maybe going to some other place, and then maybe an answer will come to you, and then you can come back to it, for example. So to not have all this pressure, or to not accept all of this pressure that I have to answer, and I have to answer perfectly, and I have to answer perfectly now, and this person will and shall and must feel satisfied with my answer. Like that's just, it's really unreasonable to do that to oneself. Why do it? There's really nobody doing it sometimes. We're not doing these things. They're not being done by anyone but ourselves, to ourselves sometimes. So to catch those patterns, to be aware of what we're doing, how we're doing it, and then perhaps making some changes and finding a place perhaps inside where we can go to make those changes. And one of the things that I was reading about introversion, very interestingly, is that introverts tend to live more in a kind of in their inside world. Their inside world is very important. And I see, I can right away see Asa and Violet nodding, yes, that the inside world is so important to us. And it's not separate from the outside. And it's also, the other thing too is that it's not an either or thing. It's not like a hard, fast binary thing that somebody is an introvert or they're an extrovert. In fact, there's even something that I was reading about extroverted introverts, which is
Yeah.
really interesting, that it really has so much to do. And this is also kind of ties in with Myers-Briggs system and tool that I find very, very interesting, that really, for me, gave a real light on the whole topic of introversion and extroversion, where they say that it's really about energy, that introversion, it's not so much about how somebody kind of shows up in the world necessarily. That's, of course, part of it, but that it has so much more to do with energy, how someone processes energy, how they handle their energy, how they manage their energy, how they get recharged. So someone who is more, say, on the spectrum of between extrovert and introvert towards introversion, they chances are will process energy in a way that when they're on their own, they recharge. When they're with people, they're spending energy. They have the energy to spend because they've recharged by being alone, but when they're with people, they'll expend it, they'll spend it. And conversely, with extroverts, someone who's more on the extroverted side, they get energy by being with people. And when they're alone, their energy is going down in a sense. And so
Interesting. I
that's
never thought of that.
important distinction. Yes, and it kind of puts it in a whole different light. And so just having that sense of how one is managing one's energy, and then the attention goes there. It's like, oh yeah, what is my energy doing? What do I need to do for it? And then letting the behavior follow from that, rather than the behavior, say, dictating how we're showing up. And the whole idea of extroverted introverts really interests me, because I can relate or resonate with that in a certain way. And that somebody who is like that will feel comfortable if they feel comfortable, if they have a topic they feel comfortable, like with you in technology at Violet, or say if I'm talking about meditation, I feel there's a comfort level there that is really, and also what in many ways that you bring different, your wisdom and your light, the way that you share with yourself. There are those areas that we feel we have a sense of confidence, a sense of groundedness in, and that then from there we can feel sort of at home or feel easy to express. But that at a certain point, like the one example I was reading is that an extroverted introvert at a party will be interacting and social and talking to people, but then at a certain point they'll disappear and they're out on the balcony just looking at the stars, or they're out walking around the garden, because then they're recharging. And then when they come back in, they're ready to again interact and to be social. So it's not limited just to a kind of stereotypical model of a person being a certain way. There's all of these different nuances, which are really and it's so fascinating. And like someone mentioned, HSPs, absolutely. And all these different kind of pods, in each one of us, different aspects that interact with each other. And that we're not any one particular thing, though we talk about one particular thing when we're talking, speaking, and interacting is a kind of linear thing, but that there is so much more going on in any given moment, and to honor that is really important. And to honor that in oneself, of course, is really important, with the respect for one's energy and one's boundaries, and all of the different things that make us these incredible human beings that we all are.
Yeah.
Kevin, one thing, oh, no, Asa, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, I love how that reminds me of, like, I love lavender, and so I love the lavender festivals. And so if there's a lavender festival, there could be thousands of people there. That's my element, and that's like, I love everything about it. And I can go out and do that. I can be at the festival all day and just chat with the vendors, and and act very extroverted. And then when I get home, it's like, okay, I need to be quiet and like not have any stimulation for a while. So I think that is kind of a misconception, that just because you're introverted doesn't mean you're like always at home. And yeah, that there are moments when you feel more comfortable and confident, and yeah, you can get that interaction in maybe a little more of an extroverted way.
Yeah, definitely. There's places where I feel more at home and I'm more comfortable to talk a little more than I normally would. So I totally get that.
And one thing I was reading a little bit on the topic of introversion is about shyness. I was curious about the connection between shyness and introversion, and that what I came across was simply that introversion is a personality type, whereas shyness is an emotion.
Mm.
So to kind of, in a sense, though they're connected, but to kind of just sort out things that really are definitely interconnected, but are in a way have their own unique sort of characteristics. That to have shyness is something that comes, say, from an emotion, a feeling. And if somebody's sort of pushed who's feeling shy, then they might have certain physical reactions as well, and can create certain memories and all that. I mean, I remember I was very shy in school, but yet I was called one time to come up and talk, and we were doing the mathematic drills and the times table drills, and I was asked what 9 times 8 was, and I didn't know. And it was such an uncomfortable experience that I will never forget. 9 times 8 is 72. But every time I'm doing something at 9, 8, 72, the memory of that is kind of tagged to 72. So because of that feeling shy. And it was nothing to do with being extrovert or introvert. It's just I was just feeling shy in front of the whole class. And especially when I was kind of called out that I didn't know the answer. That horrible feeling, I'm sure everyone can relate to in one way or another.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
without a
I'm a
doubt.
very shy child. I still have shy moments. And my partner, he's not shy at all, but he's more of an introvert as well. But he has no problem talking to people, and not shy at all. But he definitely like needs his quiet alone time. That's interesting. That I think there can be a lot of overlap with being shy and kind of introverted, but yeah, you're right. It's they are different.
Yeah, and I can remember in school always being afraid to speak up, even though I knew the answer, so it's like that shyness comes from somewhere too. Like maybe at some point I had said the wrong thing, or, I mean, as kids, you get stifled too. So I think a lot of that, your surroundings has a lot to do with that as well. And I also grew up in a household where you weren't supposed to make noise or talk. So that had a lot of influence as well. Marjorie says, I don't like being on camera either. Used to lead tours, but when events got canceled, I tried to pivot. Yeah, Marjorie, honestly, I don't like being on camera either. Believe it or not, I do it because I have to. If Insight Timer was a platform where you just had to speak and you didn't have to turn on a camera, I would never turn a camera on. But the more I do it, the more comfortable it becomes for me. And I think the important thing for me again was just to push past that feeling and just say, and someone mentioned in the chat, the conversation passed already, that it's nice for them to know that teachers are human too. And that really helped me, was to realize that these people did not have any superpowers. I could do what they're doing too. And I think once you try it and you realize that, again, feel the fear and do it anyway, it does a lot towards building your confidence. Yeah, that was you, Evie, who made that comment. I can do a lot of things now that I couldn't do 2 years ago. So how this has helped me grow is amazing. So I encourage you that if you have the same issue, just push yourself to do it. Just try it. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah. Yeah, I would always like when I released my pet meditation course, I had all those fears and anxieties come up and I was like, awesome on this isn't like this isn't like a master's thesis at grad school. And like if I get it wrong, I'm gonna fail and all, like it's insight timer. We can have fun with it and just it's not that serious. We don't take it so seriously.
Exactly. It's a great place to grow. And I always think I still have my full-time job. If this didn't work out and everybody hated me, I'm like, I would still have my job. So it's okay.
And look, you've got your job and everybody loves you.
And
So,
that's been a huge confidence boost too, to have people come back and tell you that they love what you're doing. It keeps me coming back because if they hated what I was doing, I'd be like, okay, I don't have to do it anymore.
yes, that in itself is a very clear indication right there. And yes, to anyone who is listening, anyone who's there on Insight Timer, any of the users who are thinking, yeah, I I have something to offer, I'd like to do something, definitely, we're behind you. We're definitely with you on that. Absolutely. To just
100%.
take those steps and see. And you can always reach out to Violet, to Asa, to myself, any of the teachers here. And
Oh, thank you, Lori. Lori says we won't let you go. I appreciate that, Lori. But yeah, absolutely. Exactly what Kevin said. I say this to new teachers all the time. Like, don't let that fear or that you don't want to be on camera, don't let it stop you. And I always encourage teachers too, come if you're new, come do a collaboration with us. It's the best way to get on camera in a comfortable environment because you're with a bunch of other teachers, some who are new, some who've been here for a long time. And I draw a lot on that strength. That's why I love collaborations because I'll be honest with you, I haven't done a live by myself in over a year. I think once I started doing Ask Your Guides, I stopped doing solo lives. I love having other people with me. So I prefer to do it that way. And since I can, I take advantage of that.
That's why I love
mm,
having my cat with me when when I go live. So I'm like he's like my little support buddy.
mhm.
Absolutely.
I think also too, to just whatever it is that you're offering or whatever you're bringing to, just just bring it in such a way that to not compare oneself with what anybody else is doing. Like we to enjoy and to connect with whatever anyone else is doing, but to not compare and think, oh, they did that, I should do that. Like to really honor your own process, to honor whatever it is that you're having from within that's coming out, that's bubbling up, and just know that that's enough. That's really more than enough in a way. Just to honor and to support that is such a beautiful thing to, because then in itself it more is more, as I often say. It kind of feeds itself. The more that one does that, the more it, and like Violet was saying, that kind of sense of shyness or trepidation, whatever that might be there, just doing it anyway, it kind of bypass, it goes beyond all of that, and it makes a kind of strength, and it unfolds really what I think is a potential to really tap into that potential within that
I like
is.
what John said and what Evie said. John says there's 8 billion people in the world. We have lots of work to do and more teachers needed. And Evie says everyone has their own talents to bring forth. And I agree. That was one of the reasons I hesitated because I thought, well, what can I do
Yeah.
that hasn't already been done on Insight Timer? There's other people that know a lot more about crystals, and there's other people that are really good card readers. I just like playing with them. And there's other people that journal. So I was like, what am I going to have to offer? But honestly, I just said, let me just try. It's okay. It's okay that other people may be doing the same thing. And, you know, um, Bex, I saw you say that you've hesitated. And if I can encourage you in any way, Bex, I am. Just do it. Yeah, don't hesitate, Bex, because I hesitated for about a year. So I know where you are. I get it. Your energy is what you offer. That's true, right? Don't we all have energy, our energy to offer? I think that's amazing.
Yeah, and I think too, especially with teaching meditation and yoga and the other offerings on this app, is being an introvert kind of gives you like an extra superpower almost, because you already have that lean towards reflection and listening and being present. And I think you also can be a little more maybe tuned in or able to kind of hold space for people and kind of lead in, yeah, in that kind of quiet but reflective way. I don't know. I think it fits well. So with the
Yes, and you know, I was going to say also, I think that being an introvert, I am an excellent listener because while a lot of people tend to just talk, 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 I'm listening, and I think that's what draws people to us is the fact that we are good listeners as well.
Yeah, yeah, that reminds me when I worked at the front desk as an admin, it was I would always have so people that would just like hang out at the desk and customers coming in and they would talk and talk and talk. It'd be like 30 minutes go by and I'm sitting there, like listen, because I love listening to people's stories. And that was something that my boss would always comment on and be like, you're so welcoming. And sometimes I'd have so much work to do, but it was just like people would say they'd be like, you're so easy to talk to because you listen really well. And so yeah, that is a strength.
That's
Definitely a
an incredible
superpower.
gift that can be given to someone, is just listening to them.
Mhm.
That you don't even have to even offer anything back necessarily other than just your presence, your time. That's
Evie says
beautiful.
I should Evie says I should do your meditations, Asa, with my huge puppy. I tried, Evie. He would not cooperate. He just walks off and does his own thing.
Yeah, it takes some practice. The puppies and the kittens are definitely harder to meditate with because they are have so much energy. But
Yes.
you can still do your practice and they're around you, picking up on your vibes.
Yeah, exactly. So long as they're not eating anything or getting in trouble.
Right.
Ambivert. Oh, I see John mentioned the word ambivert. It's funny, I just saw that today. It's a little bit of both, a little bit of introvert and a little bit of extrovert. I think we all probably have a little bit of both. I say I'm mostly introverted, but I definitely do have a little bit of both. And again, it's when you're around the right people that that more extroverted part comes out. I'm curious, I see a lot of teachers in the chat. Would you put in the chat if you're a teacher here, if you're an introvert or an extrovert, because I'm curious to know now, because I've been really surprised at some of the teachers that I thought were extroverts to hear them say that they're introverts. Yeah, it's interesting.
And I was surprised too, because John had mentioned how he's an actor and that a lot of actors tend to be introverts, and I had no idea. I would have
Me
never.
neither. Yeah, I would have never known that either. Again, I always think actors are superhuman. They can do anything. Blossom Violet says she's an ambivert. John's a wallflower. John, me too. Anne says highly introverted as well.
Oh, and I'm also INFJ.
Okay, explain INFJ. I know I saw that before.
Oh, I forget the terms now. I did the test a while ago. Introverted, um, what's the N? The F is feeling.
Sensing, possibly.
Maybe Anne, type it in the chat what INFJ is. I'm curious now.
Then
The
I
other
5 years
the
ago.
other thing I was gonna say about extroverts is I don't know about the two of you, but as an introvert, I do find that I am sometimes drawn to extroverted people because it's almost like they become my voice. So I have certain friends that I'm happy to go to certain places with because I know if I don't want to talk, they will do all the talking for me. So Anne writes introverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging traits. Ah, interesting. Blossom Violet says she's an introvert. I can see that because we're a lot alike. Scrolling through here, there was another good question and I lost it. Marjorie writes, it's hard to be vulnerable, especially for perfectionists, but it makes you more relatable. Yes, that's very true. It is really hard to be vulnerable. And as someone who always wants to put her best face forward, I think the hardest thing for me being a teacher and Insight Timer was to show that, when I was vulnerable. Like last year, I had two rescue pups that died within like 8 months of each other. And for a while, I didn't want to be an Insight Timer. I didn't want to talk to people. I knew I couldn't be here without crying. And then I had scheduled like a vision board workshop with Jude. So I didn't want to cancel. So I did it. And, as we started talking, I was like, I promised myself I wasn't going to cry. And then I thought, why not? Why be human? It's a human emotion. And if I can't be myself here, where am I going to do that? So, that's something that has been huge for me to be able to do that because I was always the type who wanted to be very in control and didn't want people to see if I'm sad or, something's bothering me. And now I'm like, come as I am. It's okay.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I struggled with perfectionism. And it still like sneaks in whenever I make something. So I'm like, it has to be perfect. And and then I realized actually it's been probably through my Insight Timer journey that perfection doesn't exist. And I'll always get better with each thing that I do. And as I grow. And yeah, so that's just something you gotta work through, I guess, if you wanna
Yeah,
read it.
absolutely. JE says most people are ambiverts, a mixture of both. True. And you have people who are stronger introverts or extroverts. Absolutely. And Carolina says, I'm an introvert and need time alone to recharge. Absolutely. I do need a lot of time alone to recharge. And sometimes more than others, there's times when I just feel overwhelmed by other people's energy and I just need to be by myself. And people who know me well are pretty respectful of that. And if they don't know me well, it's okay. It's okay to give yourself that time too. Beth says I cried today while doing a Q&A on Zoom. I was talking about hospice and got emotional. I didn't apologize. It's who I am. Good for you, Beth. Because yeah, I used to apologize for everything that I did and I stopped doing that. It's always apologizing. Evie says we love to see your human side. Aw. You still, yeah. Yeah, Evie, that's hard. And Anne says I've wasted so much time being a perfectionist, right? And same here. And it really was a waste of time.
I'm
Right.
thinking of Alejandro, who comes on and often talks about crying. And says,
I know. And I think he was one of the first people
not shy
that
to cry. No.
right, right. He was one of the first teachers that I felt like, encouraged me. Not that he was like, hey, cry, but because I saw him being vulnerable, I was able to do it as well. And I actually I had seen one of his lives for the very first time. And then I went live like a couple of hours later and was feeling so emotional just from having seen what he did that I started crying during my live. Yeah, he's very brave. He's awesome. We had a great talk with him the other night, and John and Jake and Weston. And I love that so much. It was an all-male panel, and I told Alejandro that I want them to do it again. Only this time I'm staying off camera. It's going to be just them having a conversation. Not that I spoke a lot anyway, because I let them do the talking. But yeah, that was great. Like I said, that's one of the things I love about Insight Timer. I've met so many amazing people, and I think that's why I keep doing this. I love the energy when we're all on screen together. Like that really, it brings me so much joy and it really feeds me and it keeps me wanting to do more of these. Yeah, Blossom Violet was there. That was an amazing one, right? Marjorie says, need it more now than ever. Aw, Marjorie, adopt another rescue. You said you have no furry company. There's always somebody out there waiting to be rescued. Evie always cry when someone else is crying. Evie, me too. It's very hard not to cry for me if I see someone else crying. Yeah, absolutely. All right, friends. So I'm just curious if anybody has any other questions, anything else that they want to share. I know we've been here for a little over an hour.
Just noticing your hashtag here, a commitment to love.
Oh yes, John's initiative, a commitment to love. We're doing
Oh,
part 2, March 18th. And I know Kevin, it's not a time that's convenient for you, but we've already got about 25 teachers signed up to do that. I'm really excited about that. John, it's our initiative. Yes, yes, it's our initiative, but it was John's energy that brought it to life. So I'm excited about that. I'm happy to be a part of that. And again, that's where I'm so grateful to have this platform and to be able to work this technology so that we can bring these things, to everyone. And that was one of the things that I wanted to see when I was a user on Insight Timer. Like there were so many wonderful teachers. And I thought, wow, it'd be so great to have them all together having a conversation. And look what I did. I became a teacher and made that happen. So if you've got an idea, I say pursue it. Bex, thank you so much for that donation. I don't know if you've heard me say in the past, but I'm a huge animal lover and I share my donations with animal rescue. So I appreciate that. Evie has a question. What was Evie's questions? Oh, do you find it difficult to go on holiday because of being introverted? I don't think that I do, only because I don't go alone. I usually go with family or, definitely at least with my husband. So if I had to go alone, it would be hard for me. I've gone alone for work things, and I'm not as happy doing it alone as I am doing it with somebody else. How about the two of you? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't really go on vacation by myself either. So I think I'm right there with you. But if I'm with family or friends, and we're doing something that interests me, then I don't usually have trouble with that.
Yeah, I know people who go places alone, and I don't would like I think to myself, it might be an experience. I don't know if I'm ready for that. What about you, Kevin? Because I think you probably would.
Yes, very much. I don't really take vacations per se, but I often have like a reason or there's something that is bringing me to wherever it is that I'm going. And I usually, well, I very often travel alone, and I really like it because I meet people. Because there's always that possibility, that opportunity to just be, first of all, on my own schedule, just do and go wherever I need to go or choose to go at any time. But also that there's that possibility that these kind of encounters, these sort of random encounters, just moving around and going to different places. And if something really, and there have been times when I've just encountered people just sitting on a bus or a plane or whatever, and they become friends even. But if something is there that doesn't really connect or click, then that's fine as well. Everybody's just on their way. So that's one aspect about traveling and traveling alone that I really enjoy actually and appreciate is this possibility to meet new people and connect with new people. And that's a really, really important thing for me and has always been, I suppose, really a part of me, a big part of me. So so yeah, in that sense, there's always that. And of course, the fact that we're also connected, that I can also sit down wherever I am with my device and open it up and there's Insight Timer now and everyone who's in as part of our different communities. So that's always there as well.
Yeah, I think Kevin, you're definitely a little more of an extroverted introvert because I think you do things that most of us introverts kind of shy away from.
Yeah,
I don't like going any place alone. I've done it and I don't really like it.
Oh, all right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
I'm not the one that's striking up a conversation with the person on the airplane, but I will definitely continue the conversation. If
Yes.
somebody starts it, then I can go along, I can enjoy that, but I'm not gonna like initiate it.
Mm.
Yes, I'm exactly the same way. It takes a lot for me to initiate a conversation, and 9 times out of 10, I'm just the one that's, they started talking to me. So then I was like, wow, this was great. I got to know this person, but I would have never, probably 90% of the time, would not have made the first move.
Well, I find also just feeling, being the sensitive kind of person that I am, and that so many people, so many of us are, just feeling the energy of the person or the situation is really kind of what I kind of read first, and then from there decide or it just happens by itself that I find that some words start coming out of my mouth, and the next thing you know, there's something going on. And also, again, to approach this without expectations, to just, make that effort and say that word, and then let it drop. If it's not going to move on, that's fine as well. I can think of one person in the area, in the village where I live, and this person walks down, I see them every day because they live in this, they live here and they work here, and they have a very kind of, the word dour or dour face when when I see them walking on the road. And when he walks by me, I make a point of saying, "Hi there, hi, how are you?" and call it his name, and he lights up for that moment. And then he's on his way. And he's not, I don't feel he's an unhappy person or anything. It's just that his face kind of relaxes into a kind of frowns kind of appearance, but that actually there's a really happy person in there, and that we can't always, but and feeling that energy is what I really feel is what where I guess where I connect with him. To not be kind of say, relying only on what we see, on the just visually in our environment, to also have, for those who are open to energy, feeling energy and sensing, to just maybe sometimes know, this situation is not something that's calling to me, so I'm not going to interact here. This situation maybe is really drawing me, and I don't know why, but I'll trust that and I'll go with that and make the experiment, again, without expectations, and see what happens. And it can be a really great thing to make that effort, and to also allow people the freedom that if they're not into, if out of freedom you feel free to approach someone, or if they approach you out of their freedom, to also respect that if you're not feeling like responding back, to allow that, no problem. And if you approach someone and they're not interested in communicating that or continuing on, fine, allow them that. And to
Oh, the
just,
rejection though. I have a hard time with that one.
that's a big one. Can be a really big one. And to somehow not sort of take it so to heart
Mm.
can be a really helpful thing, to know that, well, I was okay before I met before I encountered this person. I'm okay while I'm encountering them, and I'm okay after. Like, that okayness is kind of the running current, if you will. And then whatever happens, yes, it's nice when we have these connections. But if they're not happening, fair enough. And one thing that I really, really enjoy in connecting with people is looking for, sometimes I say, there's a pony in here somewhere, meaning looking for that connection with that person and asking those questions that maybe are a little bit, without being intrusive, of course, or invasive, not that, of course, but just asking maybe different questions that they might not have been asked that day or in general. And just, I guess being a very curious person helps, and on my part, because I'm really interested in, when I meet somebody, about all kinds of different things in their life that maybe are not normal topics of conversation. But the point being that through doing that, I've discovered that there are incredible coincidences there. Like the whole thing of it being a small world, it's small and it keeps getting smaller in one sense, that if you are willing to sort of take that little step and ask those questions, it's incredible the things that you sometimes find out, or that happen. I was sitting in a coffee shop once years ago, just Saturday morning, having my coffee against, and there was a kind of a table against the wall, and I was sitting there, and it was like a long bar. People were sitting up against this table, and there was a fellow next to me having some books on meditation. And I got interested. I thought, oh, and normally I wouldn't, especially where I grew up in Ottawa, people didn't really talk to each other very much, or strangers didn't talk to
Yeah,
strangers.
like New York.
And New York, of course, exactly, yeah. So, but here are these books on meditation. So I just happened to say, oh, you're into meditation? I said, well, you're into meditation, going to jump back 2 feet. And anyways, to make a long story short, the fellow said, yes, I just got these books, and I've started looking into meditation. I'm interested in it. And he said, I have some friends who live in this community. And it turned out it was the same community as myself.
Wow.
And he had
Oh,
grown up with people. This is a complete stranger. He grew up with people who are a very big part of my life. So I took that chance, and there it was. So I
Yeah, and
think
I know
have
there's
that
times I've
fearlessness.
gotten to know people that I thought I had nothing in common, or if they hadn't approached my husband's a perfect example. If he hadn't approached me, we would not be together because, I thought, well, we were so different. So I get that, you talk to when you open yourself up that way, you talk to someone, you find out that maybe you're not as different as you thought you were, which is
Yes. Like, 6 degrees of separation. Sometimes it's less than six. It can be even one or two
right, right.
or less. That there is no separation, in fact. Yeah.
Oh, Nicole says she's found herself having long conversations with strangers. There was something else you said, Nicole. I'm scrolling back to see what it is. And I missed it in the chat. I'm sorry. So many good points have been made in the chat. You know, it's so hard when you're up here. Like, I want to see all the chat, but I want to pay attention up here too. So I miss so much. This is where having a moderator comes in handy.
Oh,
Where's Melanie today?
She wasn't invited because she's not an introvert.
Here? Is she here by any chance?
She said she was going to be heckling in the chat, but I didn't see her.
Okay.
I don't think she's heckling us, no. But you know, extroverts are invited here too. It's okay. You know, I
Yes,
have good
sure.
relationships. I have good relationships with many extroverts. And I was saying before that the reason why I'm drawn to them is because they kind of give me that boost, that confidence that I need sometimes. So it's always, you know, like they kind of rub off on you in a way, makes you a little more confident. I have a friend, we worked together for a long time and we were inseparable. And I always felt like at work, I was a lot more outspoken because she worked with me than I would have been alone. And that was very helpful to me.
yeah, I think thinking about my friends, I'd say maybe even the majority of them are more extroverted. So I don't know if
Right.
they see, yeah, I'm drawn to them, and then they also like take me under their wing.
Right, exactly. Yes. I love
And you
that.
know something? I wouldn't be surprised if one day you had we or someone or you had a conversation with one of those extroverts and they said, you know, I get a lot out of just being around you. I really like your presence grounds me or it calms me or it soothes me in some way, whatever. That just because they're not saying it doesn't mean that they're not feeling it. And it might even be that they're experiencing it beyond their own thinking. Like they're just aware that they feel good being with, say, Asa, you, Violet, and whoever that might be. That they are getting something. It's not a one-way thing.
Right.
We're all in this together. We're all experiencing each other in different ways, different flavors, but it's all really that same one experience.
Absolutely. I agree.
And about animals, I think also one thing I was thinking earlier is about how animals, there's complete acceptance. Like animals, they're the ultimate, the quintessential, take me as I am. And so that when I don't have pets now, but I have had pets in my life, and they've been such a big part of an important part of my life when I've had them. And just that unconditional love, unconditional acceptance, unconditional just here we are,
Aw.
what's for dinner, and just let me love you. Let me just, just be like just there, just with you, and just in that simplicity. There's such a beauty in that.
Yeah, it's funny because we had two rescues before and they never were allowed in our bed from the time we got them. I don't know why. But when we got the puppy, he, you know, totally different set of rules. He started jumping up in the bed with us and we let him in now. And I always say that he is like my husband's support animal because I feel like his whole demeanor since having this puppy has changed. Even though he was good with the other two, I think just having the puppy's presence in the bed is just like it's so calming. Like I can't get over what a change. And you know, a week ago when the puppy got hurt at the groomer, my husband was so protective of him. And I said, even though he took good care of the last two, I never saw him so protective. So they've definitely formed a bond. That's amazing. I'm reading CG's comment. I feel like I have impulsive extrovert moments that may have something to do with being neurodivergent. Yeah, that's a whole other topic too. I don't know a lot about neurodivergent. That's something I've been learning about as well on Insight Timers lives. But CG says there are times when I get bold. Me too, CG. Like I have found lately as an introvert, and I think a lot of that has come from being on Insight Timer, where I have become a lot more bold and a lot more assertive than I used to be. I stick up for myself definitely a lot more than I used to. I think I've gotten better at asserting boundaries as well. Oh, Evie, yes, my puppy is okay. We took him to the groomer, and unfortunately, she cut him and forgot to tell us. And we found it when we came home, and we had to take him to the emergency vet and they stitched him up. And then we took him Thursday night to have the stitches removed and they took the stitches out and found the wound hadn't healed. So yesterday we had to take him back to have him sedated and stitched again. But he is totally unfazed by this. He's just the usual crazy puppy that he always is. We were trying to give him medication to calm him because, he had stitches and they're telling us don't let him jump and don't let him run. And I said, how do you stop him? He's 60 pounds and he's full of energy. So we had him on all kinds of medication. They did not phase him. After yesterday, when we brought him home, I jokingly said he looked stoned, but he was standing up. He would not sit down, would not lay down. And I was like, this puppy has the worst case of FOMO I've ever seen. I'm like, just relax, just go to sleep. So thank you. The puppy is fine. And yes, Nicole, the groomer, very wrong for doing that. That's a
You
whole other
definitely got an
topic.
extrovert. You definitely got an extroverted
Yes.
puppy there.
Yes, definitely did. I will say one thing, Nicole, about the groomer being wrong for that. I was so angry when this happened, and I really feel that had it not been for what I've learned on being on Insight Timer, I would have reacted completely different. Because when I was on the phone talking to them as we're driving to the emergency vet, and they're giving me oh, nothing happened unusual here, and we don't see, I was getting angrier. And, of course, it's my puppy. I'm protective. It's like my child. So I finally said to the person, I can't talk to you right now because I'm so angry that I'm going to say something I'm going to regret. And a year ago, I wouldn't have done that. A year ago, I would have just gotten belligerent and angry and just. So I definitely feel like that's one of the many ways Insight Timer has helped me. And then I was in the waiting room and I was just like kind of shaking. I was so angry. And I stood up and I said to my husband, I need to like walk around and shake and just like get this energy off of me. And it really did help me. And again, in the past, I wouldn't have done that. That's something I've learned being here. In the past, I would have just been angry and tense and probably taken it out on the person that I was on the phone with. So so yeah, shaking it off is literal. Yeah, I remember Barbara Faison used to do her lives, and she used to have us stand up and shake. And she was the first person that made me realize that that's a real thing that really does help. And I've also read like deer, like if a deer's been chased and when they stop or when they get out of harm's way, they do that. They shake. And I was like, wow, like I never realized that was a real energetic thing. So I do that now. If I'm that upset or I need to get something out, I'm like, I'll just go. Fortunately, there weren't a lot of people in the waiting room. So it was just me and my husband because, if they had seen me standing there shaking, they probably would have been like, what is wrong with this woman? Yes, dogs do that a lot as well. That's true.
Literally shake it off.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, John, I probably have been to that live and seen that. And that's where I learned that. I would not have known that. And I used it and it helped. And I use it now at other times when I'm feeling overwhelmed or angry or something's just really bothering me. Like I'll walk into the kitchen and my husband knows now. I'll say to him, I've got to shake this off. And he's just like, he knows me by now, so he doesn't question it.
I get on my rebounder sometimes.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
gonna, add something in with the bouncing.
CG says that's so real. The growth you get in this community is a blessing. Yes, CG, it is. I have come so far. I say it all the time. I've come so far from where I was 2 years ago. And, I'm really grateful for that, to have this platform and, this safe space to have been able to grow like that, because just to be here talking to all of you and to be on camera, like that's a big deal for me. That's something I would not have done 3 years ago. Oh, Lynn Frazier. Yes, she is amazing. Yes, she's an amazing teacher. I've watched a lot of her sessions. And Sukdev says the shaking is traditional in Qigong. Oh, is it gone? Yeah, John, I'm trying to remember who that is because I know I've seen him. I don't know who that is. If anybody knows who it is, put his name in the chat.
Oh, Denny, could it be? Can't think of it. I remember his last name right now. Denny.
I want to point out to the other introverts here that I found a course. I don't know this teacher. I reached out to her because I found this course called Being an Introvert is a Superpower. And I was like, this is great. How had I never seen this before? So I told her, I was like, I wish I had seen this sooner. I would have invited you to this talk. Okay, Nicole. It's all right. No problem. I'm gonna put the name of the course in here. Her name is Nina I can't say her last name. Niskanen. Being an introvert is a superpower. It is an amazing course.
Yeah, I feel like maybe I don't know, maybe this is because I'm an introvert, but sometimes I feel like society kind of uh what's the word? Like it extroversion is more appealing, I guess. That's kind of what it feels like. And so I feel like I think early on I always felt like I wished I was more extroverted, but then I've kind of leaned into it probably just in the past 5 years or so, realizing like all of the benefits there are to being introverted. And yeah, I love that she's created a course on that it is a superpower. It's a good thing. You don't have to change, who you are. There's so many benefits to it.
Yes, exactly. Yes, Kevin's saying Denny. It might be Denny. Yeah. I've have
N-E-T-N-U, M-I-U. Mhm.
yeah, I've
Yeah,
seen
she's
yeah,
young.
I've seen so many teachers.
Mhm.
I watch so many lives that I've lost track of who's who.
Mm. Violet, I wanted to just touch on one thing in terms of the extroverted introverts. Your wonderful friend Casey, how she has had a whole career and she's so much a public
I
person.
wanted her to come tonight. I even invited her a couple of days ago. She says, "How long is it going to be?" I said, "It's going to be in over an hour." She's like, "I don't think I could do more than a half hour." So I said to her, "We'll do another one day and we'll keep it to a half hour." But it's amazing to me. She's a radio personality. She's been on the radio almost 30 years. And I had been listening to her on the radio for forever and always had, she was like this superhuman celebrity to me. So when I would meet her at events, I would never talk to her. I would never approach her because I was, a little shy. Again, the introvert that has a little shyness in me, and this person's not going to have time to talk to me. And then when the pandemic started, she was doing Zoom calls and inviting people, and I was on those calls with my camera off, but I saw her struggling with technology. And again, that's my superpower. And I was like, I wanted to help. So I said, listen, I could help you with this. And we became friends. And the more I got to know her, the more I realized that she was a lot like me. I couldn't believe when she told me she was an introvert. I was like, how are you an introvert when you have been on the radio for 30 years? You go to all these public events. She's got a food pantry and she does a million things. She's constantly around people. And when she explained to me how she gets through all this, I was like, wow, like I thought you had to be superhuman to again, had to be superhuman to do this. So it was amazing to get to know her, to become friends with her, and to realize that she does all this even though it's a struggle for her energetically, because you would never know. She seems so confident. I had no idea. It was amazing.
Yeah, I highly recommend everyone listen to that podcast that you two
That
did.
that was such a and that's another thing. People ask me all the time if I want to do podcasts. I'm like, no, because I really just don't want to talk like that. But obviously she's a friend, and I was like, sure, I'll do it. And it turned out to be such a good, like almost a healing conversation for me that I enjoyed it so much. And Casey, I'll spell her name because I convinced her to upload her podcast to Insight Timer a couple of years ago, but then she stopped. And I recently told her, you're going to do it again. I'm going to help you. And the interview is under my profile. I saved it as shining as an introvert. So if you look on my teacher's profile, the interview is under shining as an introvert. And I loved that conversation so much. A lot of these conversations for me are so healing, and that was definitely a huge one. And she asks great questions. I don't know how she does what she does. I'm still blown away by the fact that she's an introvert. It's amazing.
I was glued to the podcast when I started listening to it,
Oh,
this whole thing from beginning to end. And yeah, as you know, the expression, couldn't put it down.
oh, that's awesome. I love that. I love hearing that. And that it like it makes me feel so good to hear that, because for the longest time I thought nobody's going to want to hear anything I have to say, which is what kept me from becoming a teacher. Because I
Mhm.
thought, well, I'm not going to be that interesting. Like, who's going to want to listen to me? you know, and the feedback I got back from, obviously I did the podcast because she's a friend. So I wasn't really concerned whether people liked it or not. I was chatting with my friend and that's all I cared about. And the feedback that I got back from that was so amazing. I mean, talk about, you know, being validated, like what a boost of confidence that was. So it was amazing. Evie, that is in my teacher's profile. I uploaded it as a track. Casey is also has a profile on Insight Timer, and she has an amazing podcast. And I'm encouraging her to upload the rest of her. She's got a bunch of her podcast episodes on Insight Timer, but I'm encouraging her to upload the rest. And by encouraging me, I mean I told her I'm going to take them from her and upload them for her. So she does a lot. She's amazing. She's all over the place. Okay, I think we've got like 15 more minutes and then it'll be 2 hours. And I just wanted to find out if anybody has any questions, anything that I might have missed.
Gigi had a question. I think we talked a little, we kind of mentioned bits and pieces, but maybe we can. She asked, have you guys talked about the recharge that introverts need? I swear I need a retreat after being around too much busyness.
And we were saying, CG, even here, even going live, like I normally don't go live a lot, and I did 5 this week, and I don't have another one after tomorrow. I don't have another one for like almost 2 weeks, and I was like, I need that time. Like I do need to recharge. It was energetically, it was a lot for me, and you know, you think, well, you're just on camera, so how hard can it be? But it really is. Like I really do feel I need to get that energy back so that I can kind of keep showing up as my best self. Because otherwise, I'm just going to be like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, my favorite thing to do whenever I feel like I need to, I've been overstimulated or something, I need to like recharge is to lay down on the floor. And especially if I can put my legs up the wall, that's a yoga pose where you just lay, it's called legs up the wall pose. And, but either that or just laying flat on the floor. It's something about just like being as close to the ground as possible that helps me just like feel the most like instant, I guess, relief. And yeah, maybe it's being closer to the earth that feels like that's where I get kind of recharged.
Yeah, I live in the woods, so I have that opportunity often. And in the summer, I go out a lot, outside a lot, just to sit. Like my husband built this fire pit, and it's like just a bunch of rocks and grass and trees, and I'll go sit up there. And that's like so amazing for me. In the winter, it's a little harder because I don't like the cold.
Mhm.
But I'll step outside and just let that cold air hit me. And even that just kind of gives me a little recharge.
Mm.
Yeah, CG says I have to sit too after live. Yeah, so do I. 'Cause I have to decompress.
Yeah, and it's funny because even though we're offering, we're not doing like super energetic lives. We're yeah, it's still yeah, there's still that element of like, whew, I need to lay down for a minute.
Yes,
And I
exactly.
think that's the key, is just to kind of, if you can catch that moment when it presents itself to you, to go with it. And that maybe it doesn't have to be for a half an hour or an hour. Maybe you don't have that much time. Whatever is available to you, even to just sort of go into the bathroom and just close your eyes, if that works for you. Just take a breath. Breath, of course, as we know, is so essential, so really critical in all of this. And just to respect those moments and catching it, I find at that when that moment arises, rather than say, you know, thinking, oh, I need to get a coffee and start pushing through this or pushing forward. If in a situation where you have no choice, you have no choice. But very often we do have the choice to recognize that, to take that choice and to move with that. And also the fact that sometimes it doesn't even take that long. It's just a few minutes, just a couple of really good quality minutes, or 5 minutes or whatever, maybe something that gives you enough to keep going for the rest of the day.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things I've learned also from being on Inside Timer is how often I used to hold my breath. And now when I'm
Mm.
feeling that, I'm like, I gotta take a deep breath and just, you know, a few deep breaths will do amazing things for me. But I never really paid attention to that. And I never realized how much I held my breath.
Mhm.
Marjorie writes, I used to recharge with what I call a snuggly. I do love that too.
No.
I'm a snuggler. I love that. I pet my dog all the time. Blossom says take intermission during lives. Yeah, I don't know if I could, I mean, I suppose I could take an intermission, but I don't know if maybe I wouldn't come back.
Where's Violet? Violet's
Exactly.
left the house.
You got your feet in the earth outside. And you're like, oh, I need to get back to my life.
And send out Onyx to find Violet.
That's funny. I bought one of those grounding pads. I don't know if they really work though, but I was like, yeah, worth a try, right? Maybe I'm gonna have to try the sheets. Rock
I
myself out.
wondered about those. Yeah, if they really work.
I don't know. Takes a lot to convince me, so I don't know. I've had it for a while now and I sit on it all the time and I'm like, is it doing anything? I don't know. Blossom Violet says she holds her breath during her lives. Yeah, it's amazing how we do that, and I never realized it. It's such a good feeling to breathe. Rena says the search button on IT allows you to toggle what you're looking for. Yes, yeah, I love that. Yes, I have playlists too that I have created for myself. I have so many playlists now. I don't know. I can't find some of the tracks that I love because I've created so many playlists. And the bathroom break, yes. And I was going to say, Kevin, when you mentioned the bathroom break, when I used to work in an office, that's where I used to go. I would go to the bathroom, and sometimes I would just I would sit in the bathroom for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, these people must be wondering why I'm always in the bathroom and why so long, but I didn't care. I needed to get away.
I'm not in the bathroom, I'm in my cocoon.
Exactly. And it's funny because we have a bathroom where I work remotely now, but they have offices and I've gone there. And if you're there too long, the lights go out. And that happened to me a few times. So I'd be sitting there in the dark going, uh-oh, what do I do now? Now I've got to get up and trigger the light so that it comes back on.
Just getting ready for a nice meditation or something. I think also too, there's different ways that, of course, that we recharge. One is the obvious way of like lying down or sitting down or whatever. But even maybe something like singing, for example, if that appeals to you. Just going for a walk and just start singing or humming or something. Like it doesn't have to be necessarily closing the eyes and sitting and centering in that way. If especially if you can't, let's say maybe if you're doing something and you bring that in. Many people do actually sing while they're working or sing while they're doing other
I
things.
always admire people like that, though. My husband and I were out yesterday and we were getting coffee and there was a woman over there pouring herself a cup of coffee and she was singing really loud. And afterwards, he and I were talking about that. I said, like, I love that she did that. And I look at people like that and I'm like, I want to be like that, but I'm not.
Well, don't
I
they say,
see our heckler, Melanie, just came in. I saw that comment. She's here to heckle.
Melanie's in the house, is she?
Yeah, she just came. We were saying, Melanie, that you were supposed to be here to heckle.
she's, I think I remember hearing that humming is, it stimulates the vagus nerve, so it can be really calming and relaxing to you. That's
And
part of,
I will hum, but I won't break out in song. Like this one was just singing so, and it was a song I really liked, Rocket Man. She
oh
was
yeah.
singing along because there was music playing, and she was singing so loud, and I like it made me smile because I was like, wow, that's awesome because I love this song too, but I'm not gonna walk into a place and just belt out a song the way she did. And I love that she did it. And my husband and I were like, that's so cool that people have that kind of confidence, but neither he or I would do that.
I'll sing along to the song playing in the grocery store, but not very loudly.
She was loud. Like she was having a great time.
Oh,
And
that's
it was infectious. Like it made me feel good. But yeah, a little envious because I was like, I could do that. And I will not. I'd have to maybe have a few drinks first. Blossom says, let's hum. Yeah, let's hum on our Blossom and I both, besides having the same name, we both have birthdays in May, 5 days apart. We're both Geminis. So we're doing a live for our joint birthday. So she's saying, let's hum. We'll break out in song. Can you imagine? Start breaking out. If I could carry a tune, I would, but that's not my superpower.
Oh, that's gonna be a fun life.
It is going to be a fun live. I'm looking forward to that. We've been doing some journaling lives and the piano music. I mean, I can't say enough good things about how beautiful her piano music is. I have a bunch of journaling tracks, and her piano music is the background for like 90% of them. I don't think I've even used anybody else since. Okay, Blossom Violet, we're gonna have you singing. We're gonna have you sing. You play so beautifully, you have to sing. Okay, before we cut out, I want to make sure that Asa and Kevin have a chance to talk about what they've got coming up, because we're almost here 2 hours, and again, I always say that as an introvert, I don't like to talk a lot, but somehow these lives always end up being over 2 hours long, and I love that. And again, there's no pressure, so that's probably why it happens. But a sing along live. All right, Bex. Bex, when you become a teacher, we'll do a collab and we'll do a sing along.
Yeah, I was in Denzel's live earlier, and he was singing a lot in his live, and it was just such a joy. It made me so happy.
Oh, that's nice. Do you want to tell us what you've got coming up, Asa, as far as your lives, any courses or tracks you want to share, anything?
Yeah, so I do a lot of pet meditation, is what I've been focused on lately. And so my next live is tomorrow, and it is called Pause and Peace, and it's our pet meditation lives. So my kitty Oscar will join me, and we do a practice where we look at our pets, we're petting them, interacting with them, we tune into their energy, we can tune into our connection, our bond, and we have some gratitude, take a moment of gratitude for them. And it's just a beautiful practice to bond with your pet, to snuggle up with them, and just have this really intentional quiet time to also relax yourself, calm yourself down, and help encourage that in your pet as well. So we do that every Sunday. And then we also do a loving kindness, an animal themed loving kindness. And that has typically been on Fridays. Sometimes that date changes, but every week we get together and do a loving kindness practice with our pets, and we send love to our pets and to our friends and family and their pets, and all of the animals, the stray animals, the animals in the shelters, the wild animals, and all of the people in the world we send love to. So those are the lives that I've been focused on lately. And I also do breath work. We did some diaphragmatic breathing lives recently. And yeah, and then I just have a variety of meditations on my page. I do a lot of animal themed. So whether that's with your pet or guided imagery, I have a magical cat guided imagery and a secret cat garden. I love, we kind of talked about this earlier about how our inner world, like I'm a daydreamer. And so the guided imagery meditations are some of my favorites to dream up and put together. So I've got a lot of those. And then I also do mindfulness, and sleep meditations are my most popular. And I feel like there's something else I'm forgetting, but that's the gist of what I kind of offer here on Insight Timer. And then I'll be offering yoga here soon, probably starting next month.
Kevin?
Yes, my focus is always on regular, just really showing up regularly and regularly basically offering the same thing again and again, because each moment is really unique. So even though it's in one way the same thing, it's unique because of the freshness of every moment. So yes, I'm here 2, 3, 4 times a week, depending on my schedule, with the live event meditations, where I talk a little bit, sometimes talk a lot, if there's some inspiration there that day, but always with the focus to come to a point of meditation. And I have my trusty guitar over here that I pick up and I sing, and sometimes with a cappella, just my voice, sometimes with the guitar, and that's sort of my
Well, that's Blossom
offering.
Violet. We're gonna have to invite Kevin for the sing along.
It has a beautiful voice.
He does.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you very much. And I also have a new meditation track that I've been working on that I'm hoping to publish at some point. It's quite long. It turned out, when I sat down to record it, it turned out to be much longer than I had anticipated. And for the technician who was helping me, we were both kind of surprised that it turned out to be that. So it needs a little bit of editing and a little bit of extra things to be put in, and then I'll be publishing that. the other thing is that I occasionally have guests come and join me here from my community, like in live in person with me. And I've done that a few times, and I'm hoping to do that at some point coming up. I have a few people in mind that I've spoken to, and in fact, one just approached me yesterday about possibly doing something like this. So we'll see if that happens. And the other thing is that I have several different resources here that I'd like to offer. For example, if it interests anyone, the Bhagavad Gita, different Avadut Gitas, different songs. If somebody would like to learn the song or one of these things one of these selections that I sing during my live event meditation happenings, then certainly I'm always ready to do that. I'm very happy to do that. So I haven't structured any courses per se, but I definitely am always ready to bring something and offer something if there's a desire, a wish for that to be there. So I think that there's lots and lots of possibilities always to create and to offer and to experience. So I think it's just such a wonderful opportunity that we have again and again. And with this platform of Insight Timer, where we're given so much freedom, and I mean, Insight Timer is so just incredible how much they give each one of us. And as teachers, if we need any assistance or any support in any way, they are right there. It is just, it's truly, truly awesome. So 3 cheers to Insight Timer, 3 cheers to all the teachers, and of course, 3 cheers to all the amazing, beautiful participants here today. We're all here, as I say, in this together, and we're all just experiencing this moment so beautifully. And I'm just so truly grateful to you, Violet, you, Asa, and to everyone. So thank you so very, very much.
And thank you again for suggesting this. I'm glad that you did, and I'm glad that we were able to do it so quickly.
Thank you,
And
Matt. And it came out of the podcast. When I heard that podcast, like everything together, just the combination actually of the AYG session where people were coming out and saying, "Hey, I'm an introvert too," and then listening to your podcast, it was like, yes, this is definitely something that we can look at. And it's kind of a little bit of an irony there, isn't it? But
yes,
getting inspired to come and present something about introverts or introversion.
right, absolutely. Yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh, tomorrow we have an Ask Your Guides, speaking of which, with Tom Evans, Mandy, and oh gosh, I forget their name, Stephanie Poppins and Mama J Hollows. It's a storytellers edition. It was one of those themed request Ask Your Guides. And like I was saying before, I get asked by people often now to do certain themes, and I don't have enough time to do them all. So I try to do as many as I can, but without a doubt, it does get draining for me, which is why sometimes I kind of retreat a little. I'm like, okay, I need to recharge, as CG was asking earlier, like, what do we do to recharge? I retreat. So oh, thank you. Blossom says this was an amazing 2 hours. So yes, tomorrow we have that one. And then I think the next one is like 2 weeks away, which is great because I'll be enjoying that quiet time. And then March 18th, we've got another commitment to love with John and about 25 other teachers who've signed up already. So I'm excited about that. So thank you all for being here with us. Anybody has anything they want to add before we go? I heard somebody talking about Kevin and his guitar and his singing, and I know that it seemed like they might have been requesting something, Kevin. I don't know how you feel about that.
Oh, I'm fine if you wish, sure.
Would you like to play something for us before we go?
Sure, sure, I'd love to. Sure, I'd love to. And I just wanted to add one little thing, which is that if anybody is out there listening and is like in terms of being an introvert or feeling that introverted energy or introverted space, whatever, to just know you are certainly in good company. You're never alone. And that really sometimes the greatest offering is made in silence. So if you feel, well, I'm not really contributing, whatever, but just your presence, who you are, is bringing something beautiful to the moment. And to really trust that, to honor that, to celebrate that is what is so important. And I think just and that the world may not always recognize that. And very often the world maybe is busy being a loud place. And that the beauty of the silence of your being and the presence of your being really speaks far more profoundly, far vast and to a far greater degree sometimes than all the noise and banging and the clanging of the world, and to really trust that, to honor it, and as I said, to celebrate that. And I think that's what really, and that you are shining a light just by showing up, just by being here. Your light is there. It is radiating, and it is being felt, and it is definitely making a difference. Absolutely, without even consciously necessarily consciously doing anything, just being. So I think that's a really important thing for all of us to remember in however we're put together, whether it's introverts, extroverts, omniverts, whatever the case is, and to really, again, honor and celebrate that moment to moment, and to find the ways that are really helpful for you to support yourself in this, that it will be different for each and every one of us, but to find those ways, to be curious, to keep moving forward, and to just always be open, maybe curious about something new, and see, give it a chance. You just might be surprised, and chances are you will be.
Yes,
That was
absolutely.
beautiful. Mhm.
So yes, I'll just grab my guitar here. I'm going to switch this over. There we go.
Lovely.
That was beautiful, Kevin. Thank you. What a treat. That was the perfect wind down for the end of our session.
Yes. Yeah, it's like what 10 after 10 here in New York. I'm like, I'm ready to just go to sleep now. Right, friends, we're going to end the live. Thank you again, Kevin. Thank you, Asa, so much. This was awesome. And any of you introvert teachers out there, if you ever want to do this with us, send me a message. I'm open. And I will do another one because I really enjoyed this. I really loved it.
Yeah. If you hear that calling within your heart that you want to do this, then say yes to it, and you'll be really amazed by yourself, the beauty that comes through pushing through some of that fear.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times I've pushed myself to go live when I really didn't want to, and I've never regretted it once. So, absolutely.
Insight Timer is like this constant embrace, just waiting for anyone to just step inside, really.
Absolutely. Yeah, I forgot to mention, I'm going to mention it now, Blossom, that March 13th, I have a live with Blossom, Carly, and Natalie. We do journaling together while Blossom plays her beautiful piano live. And Natalie is an amazing intuitive card reader. So that's a lot of fun. That's something new that we started doing recently. And I'm loving it because I love journaling. And like I said before, I have a lot of journaling tracks. My first few ones when I first became a teacher are not, definitely in my opinion, not my best. So again, the Insight Timer community is so gracious that they were always very, supportive. But my love of journaling, I was going to do it regardless. So I'm so happy that it was the reason why I became a teacher, and that it brought me to where I am today, where I am able to collaborate with the other teachers. And I've learned so much from all of you. So thank you for that.